Welcome to the HR Stories podcast, listener question edition, where there is a lesson in every story. Each week, the team at HR Stories podcast shares questions from our podcast audience and provides tangible, practical advice that everyone can use to get HR right. Our hosts today are management and HR consultants Chuck Simikian and John Tallheimer. What is on your mind today? All right, it's our Q&A edition, Chuck. It's our Q&A edition. That's the questions and answers, not pints and what's the other one?
Quarts and
pints
quarts. I don't know. Pints and quarts.
No. You know where that expression comes from?
No, I don't.
So back in the military days over there in the UK, the military people would come, and if they would throw something into your pint or your quart, and that means you were scripted to go into the military. And so people would say, watch your pints and Q's, your P's and Q's. I don't know if that's true.
Oh, the P's and Q's. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, if we ever have a question, we have an answer for that one.
And whether it's made up or not, we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we got some questions here today. Chuck, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Here we go. This is the first one's tough.
Mm-hmm.
Not a tough question, tough subject. All right. So how do you deal with a death of an employee? An employee's death.
Yeah, so I just dealt with that. We had a cook and worked his regular shift, regular schedule, and then sometime during the night ended up having I think a stroke or a heart attack or something went wrong and went into the hospital in a coma and eventually passed away. So, as the HR function, or as a business owner, if you are dealing with the HR function, the first thing you need to do once you find out, okay, and this was the situation. We, a lot of people are like, oh, I talked to his family, I talked to this, I talked to that, and he passed away. And then we made almost an announcement, and then someone said, no, he's not. So I'm like, okay, until we get an obituary or someone from the family actually contacts us, we're not going to say anything. And it was tough because this was it was tough to get hold of the family. But I would say first thing to do is get hold of the family. I look right away on the HR system. Who's the beneficiaries? Who's the dependents? Did they have any life insurance? Did they have any other medical insurance that needs to be initiated, and then I would reach out. Sometimes the family will reach out to you, but you need to reach out to them as soon as possible. Express condolences, express concern on behalf of the company. So that's what you mainly in the initial stages. Your role is to make sure they know if there's any life insurance payouts, who the dependents are, and who the beneficiaries are.
Yeah, and I think that's good. The other thing that I would add to that, obviously we're not talking about an OSHA incident, right? Because then the OSHA has very specific things that you need to do.
Oh, I see. No, yes. Sorry.
No, right. No, that's all right. I mean, we can take this question either way. Right? Because, if it happens at work, then we need to let OSHA know within 8 hours that it happened and blah, blah, blah. If they go in the hospital and, let them know within 24 hours. Right? So that, again, that's there. I think the other thing, which sometimes is overlooked, is the impact that employee death has on coworkers.
Yes.
Right? And so, again, I think you need to think about what are we going to do, right? And I remember we had an incident when an employee died. And it's sort of like, what do you continue to work? Do you stop work? How do you recognize this person's life in the moment? In that case, it was a very large company. So we weren't going to stop the company. Now, if you're a small business, I think it would be beneficial to be like, you know what, we're going to, everyone's going to go to we're going to give you all the opportunity to go to the memorial service. We'll shut down for the day or whatever. In a big company, you're not going to do that, but you do want to give people that chance to grieve. If you have an employee assistant program, right? If you have an employee assistant program, highly recommend that you make sure. A lot of them will have grief counselors that can come to your organization and be available. And just making sure that you're connecting all of that and making sure that you're communicating clear about it.
That's a good one. That's a good one. So yeah, and the other items are going to be when an employee passes away is you're going to want to get the service, the memorial. You should send something to there on behalf of the company, the friends and family, or the friends at work. But a lot of times, what I learned, John, is the funeral home is going to be calling HR because they want to know the insurance information also, because the funeral home wants to know, so what can be paid for, what type of package did the person have. I don't give that information out unless the family confirms that, right, hey, these people can speak for us. You can give this information out. And sometimes, I call the life insurance company, let them know these things are coming, give the family that information because the family has no idea who to call to get the life insurance. So there's a lot of those things. I like the idea where you said is in my situation, everyone kind of knew it was a small community, but how do you do that? Do you bring everyone together for the initial conversation moving forward? So I really wanted to give a shout out for your idea to kind of make sure we don't forget the coworkers.
Yeah, just having a conversation with them, I think, is important. And again, understanding that everyone grieves in different ways. For some people, they want to get back to work. They don't want to think about it. For other people, their productivity is going down, and you have to allow that to go down for a little bit. But then you have to kind of get people back working again. And, kind of go.
And then the other things is, the personal belongings, and sometimes the family members want to come. But I will tell you, when the way we dealt with this, the family sent us a very nice message thanking them for getting through the process. And that's really a lot of what we're doing is helping that family get through the red tape and the process to make sure that they're made whole on any benefits this person might have had.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Good. Yeah. And if you have any more questions about that, feel free to shout out to us and we can answer that.
John, I just love answering our listener questions. And it just reminds me that no matter what you do, and we always talk about systems and having the right systems in place. So Bamboo HR is an HR system. And it's one that if you are out there, folks, and you're wondering, hey, we need a new system, or maybe we're not big enough for a system, you really want to check out Bamboo HR. One of the things about Bamboo HR, as I have come to experience it is super easy. It's easy to use, it's easy to learn, easy to implement, and it is easy to love. There are clean interfaces, it's colorful, it's extremely user-friendly. If you get a chance, why don't you go ahead and check out a free demo of Bamboo HR. The team at HR Stories is endorsing Bamboo HR, and we would invite you to go to bamboohr.com/free demo. That's bamboohr/free demo, and get back to what you actually love to do in HR.
All right. Question number 2. How do you build and implement a business case? i.e., how do you convince executives to support the HR function? The age-old question. How do you get people to give us resources in HR?
Well, I can think of something overall. A friend of mine, Liza Dunn, she was an instructor of the same company we were working with. And she had said, when you need to talk to the owner or the top leader of a company to get them involved and to support an HR initiative, she says, you want to go to them and say, did you know, or were you aware, Leo, that this situation is happening or could be happening? And then you want to tie maybe a law to that situation? Is there a law, or could we be breaking a law? Maybe give some examples, which you go to the Department of Labor website or EEOC website or HR Dive or HR Morning, find some stories that relate to that. And then you ask the person, what would you like to do about that? How would you like to handle that? And she was a big fan of zipping and staring after you ask that question, just to see where they go. Make sure the CEO gives an answer or not. And but that was her way of trying to convince people a specific direction, but for a project. But overall, getting involved in HR, John, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, again, right? And so I think the one thing is, first of all, you have to be very clear on what the mission and the vision of the company is, right? Because the HR department is not an income producing department, right? We're not making money for the company. We're actually spending money for the company, right?
Yeah.
And so that doesn't make owners happy, right? They don't want to be spending money. They want to be making money. They want return on their investment. So when we go to them like, well, we need to increase the perks by 10%, we better have a good return on their investment, right? We need to be able to speak their language. So we have to be aware of profit and loss. What does that mean? And again, don't come like, oh, it'd be really great if we got T-shirts for everybody on the team, and that would be great, and it would make connections and collaboration. Because if you come to me and I'm the leader, I'm going to be like, I don't see the return on the investment. You want me to spend, $20,000 on T-shirts? I don't see it. I can spend $20,000 on something else. Now, there are times where we need to go and ask for resources, whether that's money or time or whatever. And so building that business case up and going, all right, here's what's happening. And if you can, tie it to risk, like Chuck said. I think, Chuck, what you said, and Liza Dunn as well, is what is the risk to the organization?
Yeah.
Right? And so telling that story of like, hey, I just read just read an article on the Department of Labor website where this company got in trouble for not properly paying for travel. And then going, this is what I want to roll out a policy to make sure that we're properly paying for travel, right? Because that's the thing you want them to get engaged with. And then they're like, oh, what would happen if we didn't? And what was the problems? And all that kind of stuff becomes important. The other thing that I would say is know who you're communicating to. Be aware of who they are and how they like to be communicated to, right? A lot of leaders are that direct, quick, control, tell me the issue and tell me the solution. Others are tell me what's in it for me, right? What's about me? And then others want the details. And so you have to know who you're presenting to. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we pretty much covered. I mean, overall, tie it to the business initiatives. Tie these things to the what the business initiative, what your boss wants, what the CEO wants, and then move forward from there.
And then be prepared for a no, right? Be prepared for a no, and then don't give up, right? If it's really important, if you think it's important enough to the organization, figure out what are the objections, what are the barriers. Is it a cost barrier? Is it a time barrier? What are the barriers that they're seeing? Come around, figure them out, and then come back. All right, let's get into the next question.
Next question.
All right, here's the question. This is from our Facebook group, our community of one Facebook group. Does anyone post birthdays, anniversaries on a bulletin board? Currently, we use a large board to recognize anniversaries of 20 plus years, but I'm considering set up another board specifically to highlight birthdays and monthly anniversaries. I'd love to hear how other people handle this.
Yeah. Well, when I do post birthdays, I don't put the year.
Hey, that's a good one.
Day and month. And I do post anniversaries. People just love to see that. They love to see how long have people been there, and they love now. I do know there are some people that don't want their birthday published, or even for sometimes religious reasons. And if someone brought that up, I would immediately take that down. I remember the first time I ran a birthday list, I eliminated terminated employees, and I had active employees, but I also had employees that had died. Okay. And I didn't take that. So that was a little embarrassing, you know, but I have been a big fan of posting them. Also, the other thing is you want to make sure that any department leaders, directors, or VPs, if there's any managers that are having birthdays in their department, or any employees, to let them know, hey, did you know today is John's birthday? John's the manager of purchasing, let's say, and you're the director of purchasing. Let his boss know, hey, did you know so-and-so's birthday today? Did you know so-and-so's anniversary today? So not only posting it, but if you have time as an HR person, kind of putting it out there to really help your department leaders recognize that. And I've seen that as a huge, huge win.
Yeah. And I would say, do not feel obligated to recognize birthdays. Like, and I know it's the thing and people like it, but I don't feel like you as HR, like that's probably not the most important thing that you should be doing. Right? If you have time and you can do it, great, right? And so kind of doing it. The other thing that I would say, and I tell everyone this, is create an opt-in form where people can opt in to celebrate their birthday at work, right? Whatever that means at your work, when maybe that means you're going to get a notice up there, but allow people to opt in versus opting out. Don't put the pressure on people to opt out. Now, I tell this story in all my classes when we talk about this subject. My aunt, for religious reasons, never celebrated her birthday.
Okay.
For the life of me, I don't know when her birthday was. And so if she had ever gone into work and they celebrated her birthday, she would have been very frustrated.
Right.
Or grumpy. And so I think we need to be aware of that and not assume that everyone's, some people, very strict religion reasons. Other people's like, I don't want the attention. I don't want to do it. So create an opt-in form. Like, hey, this is how we're going to be celebrating birthdays going forward. So maybe that's, we're going to put the names up. We'll have a monthly birthday celebration to recognize those people. If you want to be recognized, opt in. If you don't worry about it. You don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
And that gets people off the hook from having to come and explain, like, I want to opt out and do all of those things is there. And I'm always careful because we get into that HIPAA gray line. But again, a lot of us do it. We celebrate the birthdays. The one thing that happened, okay, Chuck, so here's the one thing. The one thing that happened, so I worked for a big company. And so every department celebrated birthdays differently. And so one would always do potluck, right? So if it was somebody's birthday, they're like, hey, it's so-and-so's birthday. We're going to do a potluck lunch. Feel free to bring in everything. And other people, so I had a management team. I remember now. I had a management team of 4 managers, all with their own set of employees. And they all did birthdays differently. And one manager was like, I don't care about birthdays. I don't celebrate them, whatever. I'm not doing anything. And other managers were like, potluck, celebration, let's put up decorations.
Yeah.
And so I did have to get involved and say, we need to create something consistency here, right? We need to create consistency across that. And so just be aware of that. You don't, because it was an issue, right? And so kind of being there, putting all that in there as well. So, all right, Chuck, any other final words on this episode of HR Stories Podcast Q&A edition?
Not particularly. Just folks, remember, we are the HR Stories Podcast. You can catch us once a week. telling and spinning tales of HR. Yes, where there's a lesson in every story. We've got a book out. It's a bestseller in several categories on Amazon. The Ultimate Guide to HR Checklist Edition, Getting HR Right, and it's a step-by-step guide to avoiding costly mistakes. You've got to check it out. Go to Amazon.com, Ultimate Guide to HR, or go to ultimateguidetohr.com.
Ooh. And don't forget to send us your questions or text us your questions. Either way is fine. I will say that I didn't have many questions this week, so I need to have people throw those questions to me. Always beneficial to ask those questions. We'll answer them. We'll either answer them on air or we will answer them in person either way. So if you do have any tough questions, send them our way. We want to make sure that you are getting HR right. Thank you for listening to the HR Stories podcast. The material presented in this podcast is for informational purposes only. Chuck and John always recommend using an employment lawyer or HR consultant to handle any legal concerns or HR issues. We do our best to double check sources and make sure the information we are providing is accurate. We may eliminate or embellish without changing the basic narrative to make the story easier to understand. In certain circumstances, we may change identifying information to protect the innocent. The HR Stories broadcast is brought to you by the team at HR Stories. The team at HR Stories is designed to help anyone with HR responsibilities be better at managing the employee experience. To engage with us, go to the hrstoriesteam.com and learn more about how the team at HR Stories can support your business or nonprofit. Thank you for listening to the HR Stories podcast, where there is a lesson in every story.